All right, hello. So this is gonna be a Skyview temple sort of like routing guide. I'm gonna use this map first to kind of show you around, and then I'll later have a gameplay run through. So just to start out, this temple you can kind of divide it into three distinct sections. I'm gonna put it line here and here. Kind of have this beginning section. Um, with the first three checks. You have this middle area with the big hub room with the beetle, where you get the beetle normally, and this west section. Then you have this boss area where you eventually go to cross the ropes, use the vines, get these two checks, and then go to the boss. So it's important to kind of see how to navigate these three parts, as this dungeon has a lot of breaks. But so to start out, you have first this bird statue. There's always going to be a drop of arrows and bombs at the beginning of the dungeon. So keep a note of that. Like, even if you don't have to do the dungeon, sometimes it's good to just walk in and grab the arrow refills and leave. So keep note of that. And then in a rundown, you use like some spider webs. And from here, you're gonna kind of get to a crossroad. So here there are these like little barriers, and you can uh, normally they are already up, and they're like blocking your progression to the rest of the dungeon. So this is where I do want to quickly explain Skyview 2, because this is a annoying thing that's kind of unique to this dungeon. So Skyview has two states to itself. There's Skyview 1, which is the vanilla state, um, and that's when you're supposed to do the dungeon normally. Like when you're playing the game vanilla, this is when you first enter Skyview after getting the slingshot. This is the normal state. Now, later in the game, when you go back through Skyview, it has a layer change which turns into Skyview 2. Um, and Skyview 2 has harder enemies, it has some changed obstacles, and so that change is in Rando, but it only happens when you get the water dragon scale. So um, if you enter Skyview before you get the water dragon scale, it's gonna be in Skyview 1. And if you get enter Skyview after getting the water dragon scale, you're gonna be in Skyview 2. That's important to know because there's a few differences. Skyview 2 is generally the one you want to be in because Skyview has a few advantages. The first thing being that when you enter Skyview in Skyview 2, these barriers blocking you to get to this like first kind of little hub room, those barriers are actually just broken. That's something unique to that layer. Otherwise, when you're in Skyview 1, you'd have to walk all the way around, down, hit this little switch, go through the room with the little eye puzzle, and then you can go through. So that's just a nice little time saver you can get immediately, as you can just kind of go straight through. Um, Another important thing, though, is that when you are in Skyview 1 and you are doing Skyview, you can break these barriers if you have bombs. Bombs will destroy, like, you if you place a bomb, you can destroy the barriers and get through. But, so yeah. You can also, this switch, you can technically hit this with just your sword. It's annoying, but it is technically possible, so you can get to the main hub room of Skyview with essentially no items. So once you're past here, um, you're you basically are in this little room. There's three checks you need to be worried about here. First one is this map chest. It's the one directly above you when you enter. It's on the little log. This check is it's not that bad. It does not have any logical requirements, or at least not logical, but it doesn't. You can get it with nothing. You do need something to hit down the vines in the next room, but um, this check you can also douse from pretty much anywhere. So this one's fairly easy. Then you have this key check, and this is where this whole area gets messy. So I did highlight what items you do need to full clear the dungeon. And if you notice, the scale has asterisks around it because there's a little check here. I can mark it. This is a dig spot, and it in Skyview 2 in the vanilla game, it's where you find a key to progress through the dungeon the second time. That check is randomized. It's always there. It doesn't matter what layer you're in, that you will always get an item from that dig spot, and that is important. Um, so yeah, that dig spot is, for one, it's the only requirement. It's the only check that has the requirement of digging mitts. Um, and so that means you are gonna like going to Skyview the first time, because you can't ping this check. It's all digging spots are unpingable. You are gonna want to have digging mitts going to Skyview the first time. Also, if you see this crystal here, this is very important, because how these crystals work is that in the vanilla game, or just in the game in general, what you're supposed to do to progress through here is hit 2 of these crystals, and then there's a little log here that you'd use to jump onto some vines, and these vines will take you to the key chest. And because of that, when you hit the switch, it'll raise the water level, but that also means it'll block off the area of the dungeon where you can get into that spot with the dig spot. So you essentially, by hitting that switch, you're locking yourself out of getting the dig spot check until you have the water dragon scale, and then you can swim underwater and go grab it later. Um, so that is why scale is logically required for that check, as logically the game will always expect you to not be able to soft lock yourself, because if you do hit that switch and then there's something important there and water dragon scales like not accessible, then that's a soft lock. So logic does not assumes you can't do that. So you don't have to worry about soft locking yourself, but that does mean that this check is always locked behind water dragon scale. So this, like, if you're thinking about logically, you do need water dragon scale to get that check. Despite you don't not actually technically needing it in gameplay, but it's important to remember that for like stuff like path hints, that can trip some people up. Anyway, so the main route, you enter this room. You generally want to do the map chest area first. You go down, you want to hit the switch, go into this room, get past these spiders whichever way possible, hit this switch. And a little fun fact, you can't actually hit the switch with just your sword if you don't have a projectile. Yeah, you go through this room, get the map chest. Generally, you're going to want to ping both these checks, the map chest and this key chest, as early as possible. It is, because yeah, you want to know roughly where the key layout is for this first area, because another important thing to note is that these first 3 checks, there are 3 checks, and of the 3 checks, one of them has to have a key, because there's a locked door here, that just means that the entire like first area of the dungeon, only 2 checks are actually going to be like unknown items. One of them has to be a key, and you can use that for logical deductions, where if you, let's say, get the map chest or it doesn't ping, and then you check the digging spot and it's not the key, then you know for sure that the 3rd chest is the key. And that's something you can do a lot to kind of skip around with checks. Also, keys will always ping, so if you ping one chest and the other one doesn't ping, then it's pretty likely that that's the key. So you can make plays around that like you want to. And then yeah, so this 3rd check, you need to get it without any other items, you need to go into this room by just hitting this with the crystal. Go down here and hit this switch. This is going to raise the water level. This is going to lock you out of getting the dig spot check. And go through here, back down, up the little log, and then you can go to get this check. So this is a long process. The nice thing is that if you have claw shots, which you're not meant to have here in the vanilla game, you can just skip all of that by just claw shotting up the vines on over here and then just go straight to this check. So that is something where doing Skyview without claw shots is really bad a lot of the time, especially if you need to get this check. It can just take forever. This check is really long without it, but having claw shots is also nice. Also, if you do have water dragon scale, you can jump from the water here, this water, and then jump just directly to this chest too. But so that's also another way. You can get, there's ways to get this check faster, but it is annoying when you don't have anything, because then the check takes a really long time to do. And just a reminder, you do need to hit both of these crystals for this check to be gotten the normal way. So after all of that, you're definitely gonna have, you're probably gonna have a key at this point, and you're gonna go through this locked door. Then you're gonna be brought into this big hub room area. So this is another spot where Skyview 1 versus Skyview 2 really matters. So for some reason, I'm not really sure why, um, the Stalfos for this beetle check, where this is where you get the beetle in the vanilla game. You're supposed to like do a little mini boss with the Stalfos, and once you kill him, you get the beetle. Now in Skyview 1, you had to do it as normal. You just gotta go kill the Stalfos. But in Skyview 2, for some reason, the Stalfos is just not there. And not only is he not there, but the chest also will spawn in immediately. So in Skyview 2, you don't even need to enter the room. You can just douse into this room and see if the beetle check is required or not. So as soon as you enter this room, the first thing you want to do is just ping at the beetle chest. Um, and if it's nothing, then that's great. So the next few checks here, because other than that, the only thing to get into the beetle thing is you just need a projectile. So other than that, you're good there. The next few checks are these rupee checks. These can be hard to find sometimes, but essentially right as you enter the room, the beetle thing is right in front of you, like the little crystal you need to hit. Pretty much directly to your southwest and southeast over here. You can just turn and then you'll see two little alcoves in the ceiling, and that's where the 2 rupee sanity checks are. And don't forget those checks, because they are kind of inconspicuous. Like, you may not think to go and look at them, but they are there, and so you do need to make sure you know that those are there. But those are just 2 rupee sanity checks. You do need the beetle for them, and a general rule of thumb when you are entering Skyview, you really want the beetle. The beetle it speeds up the dungeon in certain spots. It is a projectile, and you cannot get a lot of these. You can't get any rupee sanity checks in this dungeon without the beetle. You really want the beetle going into this dungeon. But anyway, so moving on. From here, you're gonna want to go around the main area, and so you're gonna come to this area, and this is kind of like the west area that has this long area with this check. And so for one, you can ping this check. You can douse for it from pretty much anywhere. So the first thing to do before going for this check is always ping, because if you don't need to get this check, you really don't want to get the check, because this check is about a minute and a half or something out of your way, so it's just not worth it a lot of the time. But if it does ping and you know it's on a key, then you're gonna have to do it. So the first thing you always want to do is, if you have a way to kill yourself really quickly, such as bombs, save at the statue here. It's gonna be right outside the door, and then use that to death warp out of this room from later on. And then this check also hard requires the beetle, so there's no way around it. You do need a beetle of some sort to hit the crystal here, which will then get you into the room. So just to be like clear here, this check is hard required by beetle. So like, along like these other rupee sanity checks, you do absolutely need the beetle for this. But so after you save, you're just gonna go through the room, do this as normal, get the check. You just gotta do like kill the spider, hit down the box. You're gonna do this check. After it, you can either go back normally, and also remember, you can use the bow to hit down both like spider webs hanging, and you can hit this crystal with the bow, or like the slingshot. Do remember, you have better projectiles. The beetle's really slow. You don't want to use it very much. So if you have other projectiles, use them. But yeah, so, and then if you can, death warp out of here, and because it would just save you a lot of backtracking. Anyway, after this, you're gonna want to just run up. You're gonna want to check this little heart piece. So this check is a little weird. How it works in vanilla is you're supposed to fly the beetle all the way up to like above, like directly above where the Stalfos fight is. Fly the beetle up there and then hit a switch. You can, there's other ways to do it though. You can use the beetle. You can also use the slingshot. There's a precise setup to get a slingshot shot up there, which I'll show you in the gameplay portion of the video. There's a precise slingshot shot. And there's also, if you have the whip actually will pick up freestanding items. So if you just whip through the gates that are basically like blocking the item, if you whip the item, you can just get it. So if you have the whip is definitely the best way to do this check if you can. But there's many ways to do it. But you can also peek this check. Like, you can just look into it to see if it's useful or not. And I recommend doing that before even like doing either the slingshot shot or the beetle flight, just to save yourself some time if it's useless. And finally, you're going to want to run back over here, and there's a final rupee sanity check. It is in like a tunnel around where the Dekubaba area is when you're like behind this locked door. You just gotta fly the beetle around a little tunnel, and then you will get the final check. At least for this section. So, with all that said, there's a few important things you do want to note for this section of the dungeon. For one, is another key that has to be in one of these two sections. Like I'll goes 1, 2, will be 3. Sections 1 and 2 have to have two keys, two small keys, at some point. So you want to use that to your advantage, because there are a few checks that if you can skip, that would be great, such as skipping this west room here. If you, it is a good idea to check, if you see this ping, check the rest of the checks here, and then if you don't get another key, great, you can just skip it, because there are key skips in this dungeon. So keep note of your key count, because if you can, you really want to skip this check. And there are ways around the keys that you don't need. So keep in mind your key logic. Also remember that there is a boss key in this dungeon somewhere. The boss key can be literally anywhere except for like on the boss itself. So remember, just remember your keys. But so anyway, so once you get your two keys, you're gonna go through this door, you're gonna fight the Staldra, you're gonna keep going. Do you remember a quick note for this dungeon, just in general? There's mushroom spores everywhere. I think a lot of people forget about this, but you can cut down mushrooms in Fairn to get mushroom spores. And if you're doing Oriel, like if you get a bottle, remember to get mushroom spores, because it's definitely a lot faster than going to the little volcano island to get them. But anyway, so this spider, there's a spider here. I would recommend learning the spider skip. It's just all you need is the sword with the Skyward strike, and you can just do it to get past the spider. And I'll tell you why you want to know this in a little bit when we go over back in time. But then you have this crystal, which is just a shortcut, which I'd recommend opening in case you need to go back through Skyview. This is generally a good idea to open. And then you can ping both of these checks. They're both just normal chests, so ping both of them, and then if you need to do them, cross the tightrope and go get them. There's a little trick you can do with the claw shots here, where if you have the claw shots, if you stand like around here-ish, you can claw shot to the vines up here, and then from there make it to the boss key chest. But anyway, so that's all the major checks in Skyview, and that's a quick rundown of just what the like basic dungeon route will look like. But that is not the only thing to this dungeon, and I'll get rid of all of this stuff because now I want to go into back in time, because this is where the dungeon kind of gets funky. So the first thing to note is that there's a bit warp that will send you from one of these two statues that can send you directly to here. So how Skyview works, just real quick, you basically have, of these three sections, I'll mark them 1, 2, and 3. When you're in 1, 2 is not loaded properly, at least. So when you enter, if you do a bit warp from 1 and you bit warp to, again, this location here, section 2 is not loaded properly. And that means that this gate, which normally blocks you from entering the back of Skyview, like section 3, it blocks you from going there immediately, is going to be unloaded. That means you can literally just go from here up and then just go to the Staldra room. And this room is also not loaded. Like section 3 is not loaded either, but you can get to the Staldra room, and then entering and exiting this room here is going to reload Skyview properly. So when you exit, now sections 2 and 3 are going to be like, they're going to be loaded in properly. That essentially means you can go from this statue all the way to the end of the dungeon really quickly. Now, what you need to do here is just an Upper Academy bit warp, which is the statue on like the upper side of the academy. If you bit warp from there, you will get this nice little spot. And that's really good because that essentially means you can break this dungeon entirely by just skipping to the end immediately. So there's a few situations where this is really useful. For one, this completely bypasses both key doors. And that's really useful because keys in Skyview can be elusive when you have stuff on like on dig spot, um, or when you have something like on small key chest that you don't want to do or you can't do. Skipping both those keys is really nice, and you do have to get the boss key, but skipping the small keys is great. Um, and yeah, like, this is also just really fast. You can get to, again, these two checks really quickly if you know something's there with like a hint. If you want to go to the boss door immediately because you found the boss key early on, this is great. So yeah, no, this bit warp is incredible. It is essentially the main thing you can do to break Skyview. And a common route you can do is enter the dungeon, go through the normal stuff, get to here, and then check these two checks. And then if you don't have the key, bit warp from this statue, because this second statue will also work with the bit warp. And then you can check the rest of Skyview backwards, and you'll skip the need for any of the keys. That is really good. um, So yeah, that is the main back in time use. And again, I'll go over the actual gameplay of how the bit warp works, but you can essentially just go straight to the back of the dungeon, then check it from behind because you can open this gate and then you have access to the rest of the dungeon. The only things to note about this is that you cannot go from this area here backwards through a locked door into this area because the game will just soft lock. The game does not like it when you use key doors backwards in certain spots. And specifically here, the game will just soft lock on you. So do keep that in mind when doing this, that when you get to the back here, you're not going to have an easy time to get back to the section 1. Keep that in mind. But other than that, with this bit warp, you can check all of these checks. They're all there, and then you can go beat the dungeon quickly. So keep that in mind when you're routing. This is another thing where you can bypass a lot of logical requirements with this, and that's why Skyview as a dungeon is one you want to do early a lot of the time, because you can access so many checks with so few items. Because at the end of the day, key logic doesn't really matter in Skyview with the bit warp, because again, you're basically just removing the two key doors. So yeah. This bit warp is very instrumental to Skyview. And there are a few other specific back in time sequences that you can do. There is a boss key skip you can do, but I generally won't recommend you do those just because they take so long that they're not usually worth it, especially because Skyview is such a quick dungeon. So generally I don't recommend doing that. I would learn it if you need to, but it's never something that's going to come up too often. Yeah. So I guess just to finish things off, just a few like extra thoughts about this dungeon, just before we go to the gameplay, is this is a dungeon that you're gonna want to do early a lot of the time because it has I believe 16 checks, which is a lot of checks, and it is a dungeon that only has very few requirements. Again, Beetle is pretty much the only thing you need. Any other projectile also works, and then Digging Mitts, and then Scale for Skyview 2. But Scale is really, again, it's only logically required for the one check, and you can bypass that requirement by just not hitting this crystal if you don't need to. Which a lot of the time you won't need to. In general, you do want claw shots before you go here. You do want again, Scale is really nice to have because Skyview 2 is a lot faster than Skyview 1. Like there's a lot of just little speed ups because not having to do an entire boss fight is pretty nice. But claw shots is nice. In Skyview 1, having bomb bag to knock down the little crates early is nice. And then also just keep in mind that you can use any projectile item to hit a lot of these crystals, that like the little switches. So do remember that you can also use pretty much any, like you can essentially like switch a lot of the beetle requirements At least the ones like the projectile requirements, like the ones that are not specifically beetle, which the only ones you can't hit are this one specifically, and you can't get the rupee sanity checks without the beetle. You can get you can hit every other switch with just a normal projectile like slingshot, bow, or claw shots. So do keep that in mind too, that entering this dungeon without the beetle is not ideal, but you can get through and you can full clear, like you can't full clear, but you can beat the dungeon without it. And also remember that theoretically you can beat the dungeon with no items, because in certain boss key locations, if you just do the bit warp from the start, you can just beat it instantly. So yeah, this dungeon can be pretty broken at some points. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I have to say just on this map. Next will just be, I'll be going over gameplay and tricks. So yeah, stick around. Alright, so I'm just gonna do a quick run through of how to get to Skyview and some of the rest of it with some gameplay. I'm gonna start this in Deep Woods because this is essentially where it matters. So remember there's a check in Deep Woods. But there are many ways to get to Skyview. Obviously, one of them is Extending Blow, which try to go for it, but this is the fastest way to get to Skyview normally if you do get it. But obviously it's RNG, I don't recommend going for too much. There's Cube Warp, which I won't demonstrate, but is also a common trick, and that is another fast way to get there. But a less common one, which I do want to quickly highlight, is by using the beetle, you can actually just fly over to this crystal and hit it from the outside. And this is, and you might think, oh, that's useless, but it actually will just teleport you right out to the door. So cool. This is a quick way to get into Skyview. And yeah, so from here, then we'll do the actual. Alright, so in Skyview, first things first, this is the statue that you use to bit warp, and then these are the pots, they have some stuff. This is Skyview 2 you're going to be looking at, because I do have the scale in this file. I'm starting with the keys, but that's not too important. Again, I hope I went over key logic in the past section, so yeah. Here's what the boards would be. Again, Skyview 2, so they're gone, but by placing a bomb, you can just break them like that. They will break. Yeah, there's nothing else to worry about here. There's, Gorko used to use that, but nah, it's gone. So yeah. Anyway, moving on. So this is the second statue. This one also will work for the bit warp, and there's also bomb refill here. And yeah, so here for the pinging, there's a check up here. It's directly above this log, and then there's a check over there. This one you can see pinging. So that basically just above you to your side. Those are the two pings. The first switch you need to hit is down here. You can hit this on anything. You can also hit this with your sword. Keep this in mind, because I actually see a lot of people forgetting this, that these switches can be hit with like any of your items. And then the second switch over here, also going to be hit by the bomb bag. And this is another thing to keep note of, that the bomb bag is actually like not the worst. It can hit a lot of things. And you are going to want to get rid of these enemies first, because they're annoying. But by just holding a bomb over your head and then waiting for about 7 flashes, you can hit that switch with just bombs. So that is good to keep in mind if you're ever doing this dungeon with just bomb bag. So this area here, there's gonna be these 2 spiders on webs, and then these vines. You are gonna wanna, I generally like knocking down these vines. If you hit this frog here, it'll actually knock one of them down because of the explosion. But he's only there in Skyview 2. But yeah, so there, I'm gonna go over this. We'll see if I get it. But there's a trick to get past these spiders. It's called spider roll, and it's kind of finicky. If I get it now. You essentially just have to roll really in a precise manner past them, and then if you're lucky, you'll get through. And I'm not, actually see the spider moved a little bit, so I'm not gonna be able to get it anymore. But if it doesn't work, that's also fine. You can just use these vines and then go here, and then there's a switch. And that switch is gonna raise the water level, which I'll do here. And yeah, so this is like how you normally get through the dungeon. But one thing to keep in mind is that if you don't, you don't actually need to hit these switches to progress. They're really only useful for getting the check, like the other check here. And yeah, swing across this vine, go through this door, and you'll get the first check. But these switches aren't actually required to get to the end. You don't need to hit both of them. So you do need to get to the key door. There's a little incline there, but I'll open this chest. You do need to get to the key door, but you only need the water level raised one time to actually hit that. So if you do need it, you can just hit hit it once and then you're fine. Because here, I just jump, I can make it. So you're gonna need to hit one of the switches, one of the two, but you don't need to hit both of them if you're just trying to get through here. And if you have claw shots, then you can just claw shot these vines and not have to worry about any of that. That's nice. So this room is essentially the same. It's just, you go through here. This is where, so this is where it kind of gets interesting. This, right above me that's where the check is. And then through this crawl space is a crystal. And this crystal, when I hit it, is going to raise the water level. I don't want to do that yet. So one thing to keep note of is that if you don't need to hit this crystal, you can claw shot up here. And this works. And then this is where you can get to the dig spot, which has a check. So that's just a little faster thing, but if you are going to hit this crystal, you can do it. You can get the dig spot, and then from here, you're going to want to try your best to chain this into the other check. So just do a quick here, get the dig spot, crawl space, and then from here, go across, you can get this check. Normally in Skyview 1 there's a spider here, and because it's Skyview 2 there's a stall jar. You want to kill it, and you can do the 2-eye puzzle, and then you can get the check. Now, if you have claw shots, you can also bypass the scale there, because I use scale to get up here, but from down here, you can also use claw shots and just hit these vines. That works. Or if you have the two water levels up, like I have, then you can just run across here that way. But yeah, so that's pretty much all there is to note. All there is to note about the first part of Skyview. It's not really that interesting, but just do note there's always going to be one key here somewhere. So yeah. Anyway, second part. Go through this key door. So right ahead, because this is Skyview 2, I can ping this check. You can ping this check immediately. I can tell it's nothing because nothing's pinged. If you quick little tip. You can generally tell that, because if you see the little arrow on the side of my dowsing, even though it looks like this check is pinging, it's actually just the one behind it. It's only when the circle's like this that it's actually picking up an item. It's only picking up that specific check. So from entering this room, just a quick little rule of thumb here. Directly to my right, that's where the first alcove is, and then directly to my left, that's where the second alcove is. You can't really see behind the thing. It's right here. And then you can just run in, grab whatever's there, and then do the other one. So keep that in mind. These alcoves are really close. A lot of people, it can be hard to find them. This is just a quick way to track them down. Going over here, this is where you have the third small key area. Not third small key, just this area. So yeah, generally, again, a good idea to save here, because the bird statue's right here. And then... so yeah, the beetle, you need to fly the beetle up top, hit this little switch, and then go through. Yeah, I'm not gonna actually go into this room just because you kind of just do this normally. There's nothing interesting about this area, so but yeah, so you just go get that check, and then go over here. This is where you can do the slingshot, because if you look here, this is where the little gates check is. So for one, you can get this item by just hitting it with the whip, like that, and you'll get it. So if you don't have the whip, and you have the slingshot, you can do a little setup here to get it. If you look here, the cue I use is if you see this little line, in between here, you can use this to kind of line up. And then if you see this little black, thing on the ground, you just kind of want to line up Link there, and then look up. If you see right where the red dot is underneath it, there's this little red, black line I'm kind of trying to trace, and that is also where you're gonna want to aim. Let a shot loose, and then hopefully it hits. It's like, it can be a little finicky sometimes, but generally that is a good strat to get it. If you need to do this with the beetle, I'd recommend just moving back a little bit, and then you should. And then also there is nostalgia here I'll get rid of, but there's a rupee sanity check up here too that you're gonna keep in mind. So if you kind of see there's a little like cubby or like little area that between the root and the tree, or the thing of the tree. So the normal way to go in here is just go through this one. And you can get the check. If you want to be a little faster, there is a little like annoying strat you can do, but if you go really high up here, you can kind of bounce the beetle in between and then get inside the this little cubby faster. I'll see if I can get it. It's a little more precise, but it is a little faster if you get it quickly. Oh, come on. Yeah. I don't think I'm gonna get it, but you can get it. It's a little bit faster to get that rupee sanity check. Then for these Dekubabas, it may look like you need to use the beetle, but just put a little tip, you can just run across it with, you pretty much want like full stamina for this, but you can just run across it without using it, any other item. From here, you're going through this door, get these two nostalgias. Also remember, mushroom spores if you need them. This is gonna take me to the end of the dungeon. Now I'm in the section 3. So a little thing to note that I didn't really mention, in Skyview 2, the spider here is gone. Normally there's a little spider here that you need to get across, but like just blocking here, but he's not here in Skyview 2. And then there's these really annoying archers. These guys kind of suck. In the vanilla game, what you're supposed to do to get rid of them is like fly the beetle to a bomb here. It's like, yeah, it's over there, and then hit them, but that's kind of slow. Luckily, there's a way around it. Because we play in hero mode, if you charge a Skyward strike, like from roughly right here, the setup's a little finicky. You can hit both of them with a single Skyward strike and kill them. It's kind of precise, and I recommend practicing this because it can be annoying, but you can do that. You can also hit them with a bow. That also works. But I recommend learning the Skyward strike setup because it works with every item. It works without any item. Then the check, one of the checks is in there. It's like this little chest. Then one of the checks is this one, the boss key one. So across this tightrope. The little chest is just normal, you just go grab it, but generally you want to do it after getting the boss key chest just because the pathing is a little nicer. From here you can do a little trick with the claw shots to, you can claw shot this vine, and that essentially skips going around like climbing the vines over there, climbing up and then hitting that rope over. That's a neat little time save, but it only works with when you have the claw shots. But you have these fun little vines you can use. Then cross these and get to this boss key chest. Alright. Going back. Swing across. You can't make this back. And then this is when you go get this check. And then you're done with Skyview pretty much. That's just the beginning. That's just the main area. Now, I will go over gear him because he's pretty quick. So gear him. He does not require any items to kill him. You just need your sword. So that's nice. Gear him gets progressively easier for each sword that you have higher. If you have a higher level sword, the sword will do more damage, he will die faster. And that's good to keep in mind. So, this fight's fairly easy, but for the first phase, hold your sword out to the side, hit attack, and then stab, and then just repeat. With the long sword, it only takes two cycles for him to get to the second phase. With the goddess sword, it takes 4. With the master sword, it takes 1. You can do a jump. If you do a jump slash after that, you can hear him. Like right after, but you want to basically hold A and then just like shake the nunchuck, and then now you're basically just waiting for him to be vulnerable. When he charges at you, you can hit him with a slash and just an attack. And when he holds his sword up normally, that's when you can just do another slash. When he gives you darts, that's kind of bad because darts are slow. You don't want to hit them back. You want to just get rid of them immediately because they're just slow, and the damage you get from hitting back a dart is negligible. So it's not really worth any of your time. So that's gear him though. He just takes a few more cycles if you have got a sword. So it's nothing too big to be worried about. If you need to save, there's a save statue right outside that you can use. Anyway, so now it may seem like the dungeon's done, but that's actually not true. There is one more check in this dungeon. That's not the hard container. Because this dungeon is kind of unique, and do not forget this, but there is another check outside here in this little courtyard. Because if you roll up here, if you see that little red rupee, that is actually a check. That will change, that is a rupee sanity check. Always remember this, because this is a very easy one to forget. That check is a check. That can be anything. That can be a sword, that can be your harp, that can be claw shots. So keep that in mind. That is a randomized check. And you do need the beetle to get it. And so it's generally a good idea to finish this dungeon with the beetle, because leaving this check and getting it later kind of sucks. So always remember to have the beetle. And from here, there is a goddess cube behind this also. It's not in any like race settings right now, but if you ever are playing with goddess cubes, you can get that. And then yeah, so just Skyward Strike at the end. Remember, you do need Goddess Sword to finish all dungeons, and you start with Goddess Sword in race settings, but if you're ever playing swordless, then you will need a Goddess Sword in order to beat it. Alrighty. So now that that's out of the way, let's go to part 2, which is bit. So there's only one bit I'm going to go over here, because there's honestly only one that needs going over, and that's the bit warp. So remember, you need to be at one of the first 2 statues, this one or the one in the next room, and then you need to save, and then you can just die. You can die to this nice Deku Baba here, you can die to a spider, you can die to pretty much anything. I'm just going to die with bombs. But yeah, so this strat, this bit warp, is fairly simple. You don't need any items to do it. The actual back in time sequence is very simple. It's one of the easiest ones to learn. And yeah, this is a back in time that would be faster if you had a Bitmagic file. I'm not going to be going over that because Bitmagic files are complicated, but by essentially saving a file on Skyloft, then copying that file to another one, you can have Skyloft flags saved, and then if you bonk a tree, you'll use those Skyloft flags and open the gates, but we're not going to do that. Yeah, we're gonna spawn in here. It doesn't really matter if you like what menuing you do. So the easiest way is just run backwards around the bazaar, and you're gonna just run through here along the bazaar to this little stairwell, and you can't cross it because this gate is closed. But what you can do is if you run off the edge here, anywhere around here, you can run off. And that will spawn you right next to the statue. You're right there. This is how you bypass the gates if you don't have a Bitmagic file. Then from here, what you're gonna want to do is walk up to the statue, select it, or you want your file selected and to be in this screen with the statue where it says save at the same time. Then you just need to select both of these. You can just use the nunchuck for that. Have start and save selected at the same time, and then just press A. And you did it. That's a bit warp. So you're gonna spawn in pretty high in the sky, and then here you're gonna be right where I pointed out earlier, in this weird state of Skyview. So nothing is loaded right now. Normally there's enemies, there's usually stuff here, but there's nothing loaded right now. And nothing will load unless we reload the area, and we can easily do that by going over here. If you notice, I never opened this gate, but it is gone. The archers are gone. Chest is still there, but archers are gone. Everything's gone. The tightrope is also gone. Like I can't get across here. So to fix this kind of state, I'm gonna go through here, and then we're gonna go to the right and through this little section, go over this log, and then run to the door here, because this door will be loaded. Then open the door, and then I have already killed him, but if you haven't, you're gonna go kill the Staldra. And then after that, you can go back. Now, after doing all that, Skyview is gonna be loaded normally again, and that's great. Now, if we wanted to, we can go beat the dungeon. We can turn around. Like I can also show you like the gates were closed. But yeah, so now like the tightrope's here. I can go beat the dungeon. I can turn around. I can do more checks. Works. From here, I can pretty much do anything else in the dungeon. Again, the only thing to keep in mind is that you can't use the key to go back to the first section backwards. That is not possible, and you will softlock your game. So do not do that. That door is off limits from here. But other than that, congratulations. That is, you have broken Skyview, and that's pretty much everything I have to go over. This dungeon is a little complicated, but it's not the worst. After a little bit of practice. This is one that learning to route properly into your seeds can be hard at first, but after some time, I am sure you will master it. Yeah. Alright, thank you for watching.